It's Friday night. You've had a long week. You head out with friends, grab a drink, maybe two. You feel more relaxed, more social. But what if I told you that the moment that drink touches your lips, a silent, complex transformation begins in your body and brain? Let's start with what happens first physically. Alcohol, or ethanol, is absorbed quickly through the stomach and small intestine. Within minutes, it's in your bloodstream, traveling throughout your body. Your liver is the main player here. It processes over 90% of the alcohol you consume. But there's a catch. Your liver can only break down about 1 standard drink per hour. The rest? It lingers, building up in your system, affecting your heart, your pancreas, and even your immune system. Over time, excessive drinking leads to fatty liver, hepatitis, and eventually cirrhosis, a deadly scarring of the liver tissue. The moment alcohol reaches your bloodstream, it passes freely into your brain. And that's where the most profound and dangerous transformations begin. Your brain is an intricate electrical web, 86 billion neurons communicating via chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. Alcohol throws a wrench into this system almost immediately. First, it enhances the activity of GABA, the brain's main inhibitory neurotransmitter. Think of GABA as the brake pedal of the brain. When you drink, GABA floods your neural circuits, slowing everything down, your thoughts, your reflexes, even your anxiety. That's why you feel calm, less guarded, maybe even euphoric. At the same time, alcohol suppresses glutamate, the brain's gas pedal. Glutamate helps with memory formation, learning, and mental clarity. When it's blocked, your cognition dulls. You forget things. You lose focus. You say things you wouldn't normally say. Then comes the dopamine hit. Alcohol triggers the release of dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical, in the mesolimbic reward pathway. This is the same system activated by sex, food, and even love. But here's the problem. Alcohol gives you a shortcut to dopamine. It hijacks the reward system, and over time, that shortcut rewires your brain. Your brain starts to link alcohol with pleasure, stress relief, confidence, even social connection. Eventually, it stops responding to natural rewards with the same enthusiasm. What used to bring you joy, music, a walk, your partner, now pales in comparison to the quick dopamine rush of a drink. As you drink more, alcohol affects the prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO. This region is responsible for judgment, impulse control, long-term thinking. When the prefrontal cortex is suppressed, you become more impulsive, more emotional. You ignore consequences. You take risks. This is why alcohol is involved in a huge percentage of violent crimes, car accidents, and unplanned sexual encounters. The part of your brain that usually says stop, goes silent. Drink enough, and something even more dangerous can happen, a blackout. During a blackout, your brain literally stops recording memories. It's not that you forgot, it's that the memory was never saved in the first place. This happens when the hippocampus, the brain's memory gatekeeper, is too impaired to encode short-term experiences into long-term storage. It's terrifying, and more common than you think. Over time, alcohol exposure, especially repeated binge drinking, causes structural changes in the brain. Regions like the frontal lobe shrink. The cerebellum, responsible for coordination and motor control, deteriorates. The amygdala, linked to fear and emotional memory, becomes hypersensitive. This isn't just theory. MRI scans of long-term heavy drinkers show significant atrophy, literal loss of brain mass. And in adolescence, the damage happens faster and lasts longer. Younger brains are still developing, particularly the prefrontal cortex. Drinking during these formative years permanently alters the architecture of self-regulation and impulse control. So what does alcohol do to your brain? It disrupts your chemistry, clouds your judgment, steals your memories, and, over time, rewires the very circuits that make you, you. The effects are far worse. Studies have linked heavy alcohol use to brain shrinkage, memory problems, and even an increased risk of dementia. Alcohol doesn't just change your brain. It changes you. How you see yourself. How you process emotions. How you cope with the world. One of the first psychological effects of alcohol use, especially over time, is emotional blunting. You may start drinking to ease anxiety, dull sadness, or escape stress. And in the moment, it works. But the more you drink, the more you disconnect from your feelings, the good and the bad. Joy, passion, hope, they don't shine quite as brightly anymore. But anger, guilt, and shame, they tend to linger. Over time, alcohol doesn't numb just pain. It numbs you. Many people drink to calm their nerves. But alcohol is like borrowing peace from tomorrow. Yes, alcohol temporarily sedates your nervous system. But as it wears off, your brain tries to rebalance, often overshooting. The result? Increased baseline anxiety, especially the day after drinking. Heart racing, paranoia, restlessness, the infamous anxiety. Ironically, the more you use alcohol to cope with anxiety, the more anxious your brain becomes without it. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, and long-term use is strongly linked to clinical depression. It alters the balance of serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins, the very chemicals that regulate mood. Over time, alcohol reduces your brain's ability to experience pleasure, even when sober. This is why many heavy drinkers feel chronically tired, irritable, and emotionally flat. And for those already struggling with depression, alcohol can deepen it, increasing hopelessness, isolation, and even suicidal ideation. For people living with trauma or PTSD, alcohol can feel like medicine. A way to silence the intrusive thoughts. To forget. To sleep. But it's a trap. Alcohol may suppress trauma in the short term, but in the long run, it prevents processing. You become stuck in a feedback loop, drink to escape, then relive the pain with even less resilience. Over time, alcohol can actually strengthen the neural pathways of trauma, making triggers more powerful, not less. One of the most subtle and heartbreaking effects of alcohol is the erosion of identity. The more you drink to cope, the more you lose sight of who you are without it. Hobbies fade. Passions dim. Relationships suffer. Purpose disappears. You start to become the version of yourself that drinks. Maybe even depend on it to socialize, to create, to exist. And that version often feels like a ghost of who you once were. Perhaps the cruelest psychological twist of all is that alcohol convinces you you're in control. You tell yourself it's manageable. Just a way to take the edge off. You're not like them. You don't have a problem. But each time you drink to cope, you reinforce dependency. You weaken your internal coping tools. You make it harder to feel okay without it. And by the time you want to quit, you may not remember how. Alcohol changes your mind, and it does so slowly, invisibly, until one day you wake up and realize, the person in the mirror doesn't feel like you anymore. It starts with a drink. Then another. Then years go by. And somewhere in the background, quietly, consistently, alcohol begins to rewrite your body. Your liver is the body's biochemical powerhouse. It detoxifies, digests, filters, and fuels. But alcohol makes it work over time, and slowly, it starts to lose the fight. Stage 1 is fatty liver, which can begin after just a few heavy drinking sessions. Most people have no symptoms. Then comes alcoholic hepatitis, inflammation, nausea, fever, pain. It can go away, or become fatal. And finally, cirrhosis. Scar tissue replaces living cells. The liver hardens. It shrinks. It fails. And unlike earlier stages, this damage is permanent. Liver disease from alcohol is now rising fast, especially among younger people in their 20s and 30s. A silent epidemic. What most people don't realize, or try not to, is that alcohol is a Group 1 carcinogen. That means it's in the same category as asbestos, plutonium, and tobacco. Mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, breast, colorectal. Even small amounts increase risk. Just one drink a day raises the chance of breast cancer in women by about 10%. Heavy drinkers face a dramatically higher risk of liver, esophageal, and colon cancers. Why? Because alcohol metabolizes into acetaldehyde, a highly toxic compound that damages DNA and prevents your body from repairing it. There's a myth that alcohol, especially red wine, is good for the heart. The truth? It's more complicated, and far more dangerous than we think. Alcohol raises blood pressure. It weakens heart muscle. It causes irregular rhythms like atrial fibrillation, which can lead to stroke or sudden cardiac death. Heavy long-term drinking can lead to alcoholic cardiomyopathy, where the heart literally stretches and thins until it can no longer pump blood effectively. The heart that once powered your life begins to sputter. Alcohol damages your entire digestive system. It erodes the lining of your stomach, disrupts nutrient absorption, and inflames your pancreas. Chronic pancreatitis, a consequence of heavy drinking, causes searing pain, digestive failure, and can eventually lead to diabetes. And as the gut breaks down, a deeper problem emerges: leaky gut syndrome. Toxins and bacteria escape the intestines and enter your bloodstream, causing widespread inflammation, brain fog, and even autoimmune disorders. Alcohol suppresses your immune system, making you more vulnerable to everything from colds to pneumonia, and, as we learned during COVID-19, it worsens outcomes in viral infections. But it also disrupts your hormonal balance. In men, alcohol lowers testosterone, leading to fatigue, low libido, and muscle loss. In women, it throws estrogen and progesterone off balance, increasing breast cancer risk and disrupting menstrual cycles. It interferes with thyroid, insulin, cortisol. The entire hormonal orchestra of your body begins to fall out of tune. Alcohol accelerates aging, not just in how you look, but in how your body performs. It shortens telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA, speeding up cellular decay. It dehydrates your skin, dulls your eyes, and slows collagen production. It shrinks your brain, weakens your bones, slows your reflexes. By the time you feel old, alcohol may have already aged you. Alcohol kills more than 3 million people a year. That's one person every 10 seconds. And most of them never saw it coming. Your immune system is also compromised by alcohol. Even a single heavy night of drinking can suppress immune function for up to 24 hours. Chronic drinkers are more susceptible to infections, like pneumonia, tuberculosis, and COVID-19 complications. And then, there's cancer. The World Health Organization classifies alcohol as a Group 1 carcinogen, the highest risk category. It's linked to at least 7 types of cancer, including breast, colon, liver, throat, and esophageal cancers. For every 10 grams of alcohol per day, less than 1 standard drink, a woman's risk of breast cancer increases by about 7%. The problem with alcohol is that the more you use it, the more your brain adapts. Over time, you need more to feel the same buzz. That's tolerance. Meanwhile, your brain produces less dopamine on its own, making sober life feel dull, grey, even unbearable. That's dependency. When you try to stop, withdrawal kicks in. For some, it's mild anxiety. For others, it can be deadly: seizures, hallucinations, and delirium tremens. That's why detoxing from alcohol can be more dangerous than detoxing from heroin or cocaine. It requires medical supervision. In a world where alcohol is glorified, in ads, movies, music, it's easy to forget. Alcohol is the 3rd leading cause of preventable death worldwide. Alcohol companies spend billions glamorizing drinking. They target young adults, exploit sports culture, and push the message that drinking equals fun, sexy, normal. Yet behind every party is an industry profiting from addiction, illness, and death. But change is happening. A growing movement, the sober curious, is challenging the alcohol narrative. People are discovering life without alcohol, and realizing it's not only possible, but better. Better sleep, more clarity, deeper connections, real joy. Alcohol isn't inherently evil, but it's far from harmless. It rewires your brain, taxes your body, and takes more than it gives, especially when used mindlessly. Whether you choose to drink or not, make that choice consciously. Know the science. Know the risks. Know yourself. If this video opened your eyes, give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Subscribe for more content that uncovers the truth behind the everyday choices we make. You are stronger than your habits. Stay curious. Stay conscious.